welcome. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, I'm Jessie.
And hi, I'm Pat. We're so glad you're here, ready to share a moment with us.
Yeah, like we're just sitting together having a real conversation.
Exactly. Today, we're embarking on, well, a really crucial exploration.
Mm-hmm.
It's this journey from self-criticism to self-compassion. You know that voice, that inner critic that sometimes feels like your toughest enemy.
Oh, definitely.
We're going to unpack where it comes from, maybe how it's actually a survival skill you picked up,
Right.
and most importantly, how we can gently transform it, turn it into, strength and healing.
Our mission today really is to give you a shortcut to understanding this shift.
Yeah, hopefully with some insights that might surprise you, maybe some aha moments.
It's just fascinating, isn't it, how our own internal stories, the narratives we tell ourselves,
Often shaped by the past.
exactly, how they can dictate our present, our future well-being. We'll look at what self-compassion is, sure, but also why it's so critical.
And the practical stuff, right? How to actually do it.
Yes, how to integrate it daily, which, it raises a big question. What if thriving isn't about pushing harder, like we're often told? What if it's actually about being kinder to yourself?
Okay, let's dig into this inner critic then, because, wow, so many of us have it.
Mm-hmm.
That voice. Sometimes it's self-hatred or loathing or just this subtle contempt.
Yeah,
Right.
constant background noise sometimes.
And it's often tied to really deep feelings of shame, this sense that fundamentally we're just flawed.
Right.
But where does that intensity come from? Why is it so harsh sometimes?
Well, it's a really profound thing to think about, isn't it? That we're not actually born self-critical.
Really? You think?
Yeah, our sources really emphasize this. Think about a baby, they don't judge themselves. So this voice we carry, it feels so innate, but it's actually learned.
Learned. Okay.
It's more like a scar from early, maybe difficult experiences, not an inherent part of who we are.
So connecting that,
Yeah.
the inability to feel warmth towards ourselves, it often stems from things like childhood trauma, neglect,
And
abuse.
exactly. Or even just consistent criticism from parents or peers, maybe. These things, they don't just vanish.
No.
They lay down these deep emotional memories, carry fears through life. And that makes it incredibly hard to feel safe. Safe in
Yeah.
the world, safe with others, even safe inside ourselves.
That makes so much sense.
Yes.
So it's less like a personal failing
Definitely.
and more like our brains learned a way to protect us back then.
Precisely. A learned survival response.
It reminds me of that idea, intergenerational trauma,
Yes.
where patterns of suffering get passed down, not just genetics, but how parents may be dealing with their own stuff.
Unresolved trauma, yeah.
They struggle with being emotionally consistent, maybe
Yeah.
struggle with attachment.
Absolutely spot on. Danielle Rousseau from Boston University talks about exactly this, how trauma gets transmitted through attachment relationships, where the parent has experienced trauma themselves. And it has these huge impacts across a person's whole life.
So what does that look like?
It can lead to something called disorganized attachment. Imagine being a child, and your caregiver is sometimes safe, sometimes scary.
And predictable.
Totally unpredictable. You don't know who's safe, where you belong. It creates this deep confusion.
And that affects trust, I guess.
Hugely. Trust in others, but also trust in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And this internal uncertainty, this lack of a secure base, well, that often translates into self-criticism.
Oh, so.
It's like trying to control the chaos internally, punishing yourself, criticizing yourself first, maybe believing if you're just perfect enough, you'll finally be safe or belong.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
It's an attempt to manage something that felt unmanageable externally.
Okay, here's where it gets maybe a bit counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources suggest this self-criticism, even though it feels awful,
Mm-hmm.
it can actually be a kind of safety strategy.
Right, a coping mechanism.
Yeah, a way we unknowingly try to handle fears. Like the fear of rejection is a big one, right?
Use.
Or trying to keep ourselves in line. I read this one story, someone saying their self-criticism made them work harder. Like they had to earn their place.
Yeah, I've heard similar things.
So in a really twisted way,
Yeah.
it's about survival, trying to protect ourselves from more hurt.
It really resonates with that framework of survival skills versus thriving skills, doesn't it?
Explain that a bit.
Well, our brains are constantly adapting, learning. But those old skills, the ones developed under threat or stress,
Survival ones.
yeah, they get deeply grooved in, like automatic pathways. So when we feel threatened, even if it's just an imagined social threat or a memory,
Our lizard brain kicks in.
pretty much that reactive part takes over. And self-criticism can be one of those automatic defenses, not always conscious.
Right. Designed to regulate pain or avoid perceived external threats, even if it causes internal pain.
Exactly.
So it's really, it's not our fault. We didn't choose this conscience. And this connects to that concept, maybe a bit controversial, learned helplessness.
Ah, yes. That one has a history.
Right. Originally, it sounded like people just learned to give up.
But the understanding has shifted.
How so? Our sources say helplessness is more like an innate reaction to trauma.
Correct. And that avoiding the bad stuff is actually what has to be learned. Those early experiments, well, ethically, they were pretty flawed.
So if helplessness is the default reaction, what does that mean for us?
It means passivity, when faced with something awful you truly can't control, isn't a character flaw. It's not a choice.
With biologic.
It's a biological default response. Think about a child who literally was helpless against abusive parents. Their nervous system did what it's designed to do.
Okay, so that shifts the blame.
Completely. From the individual to the circumstances. These aren't distorted thoughts necessarily. They're often safety behaviors, attempts to survive.
And once we understand that, really understand it.
Then we can start to choose a different path. Move from just surviving to actually thriving.
So if self-criticism is that ingrained survival skill, then self-compassion is definitely the thriving skill.
It'd be beautifully put. Yes.
It's about being kind, understanding towards yourself. When you suffer, when you mess up, feel inadequate.
Just like you would be to a friend you really care about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the sources really stress this isn't self-pity, it's not weakness.
Not at all. Think about strong figures throughout history, often deeply compassionate people.
Right. Buddha, Gandhi. Hardly weak. Their empathy was a strength.
Precisely. And the research backs this up with real, tangible benefits.
Like what?
Self-compassion acts as an emotional buffer. It leads to less anxiety, less depression,
Okay.
increased resilience, better overall emotional well-being. There was a pilot study on something called compassionate mind training, CMT. It showed significant drops in depression, anxiety, self-criticism, shame, and importantly, a better ability to self-soothe.
Wow. Okay. So the evidence is there.
Definitely. Which leads us to the big question, how do we actually do it? How do we develop this skill, especially if that critic is loud?
Yeah, the how-to. Because just knowing isn't always enough, is it?
Not usually, no.
So what do the sources offer? Any practical tools?
Yes, some really powerful but also quite practical frameworks and techniques. One big one is the power of storytelling. Narrative therapy.
Storytelling. How does that help with self-compassion?
It's more than just recalling events. It's about actively reshaping how you understand them, creating a new story for yourself.
Okay, interesting. Like what?
Well, practicing emotional honesty. Maybe writing a letter to your younger self, acknowledging their pain.
Ooh, that sounds powerful.
Or exploring emotions through the body. Asking, where do I feel this physically?
The body-mind connection.
Exactly. Or even imagining a difficult emotion like shame as a character, giving it a name, a visual. It makes it feel less overwhelming, less like you.
Sort of externalizing it a bit.
Kind of, yeah. It makes it easier to observe with curiosity instead of judgment.
What else was storytelling?
Perspective shifting. This is fascinating. Try viewing your own story as a kind, non-judgmental friend would.
See it from the outside.
Yes. Or even narrate your experiences in the third person, Pat felt, or Jesse experienced. Studies show this creates emotional distance.
Makes it easier to be kind to that person.
Exactly. Less stuck in that first-person critical loop. And finally, focusing on growth and resilience.
Oh.
Using prompts to reflect on challenges you've overcome, big or small. Lessons learned. Honoring your growth. There are even digital tools like Story that help preserve these narratives, especially using voice.
Voice recording. Why is that helpful?
Sometimes hearing your own voice telling the story uncovers deeper layers of meaning and emotion than just writing. Like one expert said, we change because we hear stories and because we tell them.
That resonates.
And what's really fascinating is how these narrative shifts connect beautifully with internal family systems, or IFS.
IFS, I've heard of that. The idea of parts.
Exactly. IFS sees the mind as naturally multiple. not one single self, but composed of various parts or subpersonalities.
Okay.
You have wounded exiles parts holding pain like shame, fear, unworthiness, often pushed away.
Right.
And then protectors parts trying to manage that pain, sometimes in ways that look like self-sabotage, perfectionism, addiction, even intense self-criticism.
So self-criticism is a protector part in IFS.
Often, yes. From an IFS view, it's not about self-hatred, it's self-preservation.
Trying to prevent pain.
A desperate attempt by the protector to stop the overwhelming pain of the exile from flooding the system. Maybe it thinks criticizing you first will stop you taking risks that lead to rejection. It's trying to keep you safe in its own way.
Wow. So how do you heal that in IFS?
By approaching all parts with curiosity and compassion, from your core self, that inner place of wholeness, wisdom, calm.
Befriending the parts.
Yes, understanding why they do what they do, appreciating their protective intent, then helping them find new, healthier roles once the underlying pain is addressed.
That sounds like reparenting yourself.
It connects deeply to that, yes. Imagining what a truly compassionate parent would say to your inner child part, offering the love and care that might have been missing, becoming your own secure base.
That makes so much sense. Seeing the intentions behind the behaviors. Okay, so we have narrative work, IFS, any other specific techniques?
Yes, compassionate mind training, CMT, offers some really concrete practices.
Like what?
First, simply valuing compassion, really internalizing that kindness isn't weak, it's a strength, challenging those cultural myths.
Okay, shifting the mindset first.
Then, developing a compassionate inner voice and imagery. This isn't about specific religious figures, unless that works for you. It's creating your own ideal of caring.
My own image.
Yeah, maybe a wise person, a gentle animal, a calming natural scene like the ocean, something that embodies wisdom, strength, warmth, non-judgment for you.
And what do you do with this image?
You practice imagining what it would say to you when you're struggling, how it would feel to receive warmth and understanding from it.
Focusing on the feeling.
Yes, that's key. The research shows the feeling generated is crucial, more than just logic. Our brains respond to internal images and feelings, just like external ones.
So if criticism triggers stress.
Internally generated kindness can trigger our soothing system. It's like physiotherapy for the mind.
Training new emotional muscles. I like that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And finally, simple grounding techniques can really help integrate all this.
Grounding, like focusing on the present.
Yes, maybe using a simple object, a smooth stone, even a tennis ball.
A tennis ball.
Yeah, one person found just holding one helped them feel more relaxed than they had in years. You use the object to focus your attention, connecting it to that soothing feeling or your compassionate image.
A physical anchor.
Right. It helps retrieve those compassionate thoughts and feelings, especially in tough moments. A healthy alternative to less helpful coping ways.
Okay. Wow. Lots of practical paths there.
Definitely.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it feels really clear. Self-compassion isn't just nice.
No, it's fundamental.
It's a real pathway to healing those old wounds, moving beyond just surviving day to day. Realizing that those old patterns, like harsh self-criticism, maybe they tried to keep you safe once.
They had a purpose.
But they don't have to define your future or limit your well-being now.
It's about recognizing you deserve the same kindness you'd give anyone else.
Absolutely. The same understanding.
And this process, it can be challenging sometimes, let's be honest.
For sure. Undoing old habits takes effort.
But it's also incredibly liberating. Making that conscious choice to challenge the critic, honor your whole journey.
The messy parts, too.
All of it. And building a relationship with yourself that's based on warmth, acceptance, self-respect.
So for everyone listening, as you reflect on this,
Yeah.
what does this mean for you?
Yeah, maybe think about what aspects of self-compassion resonated most.
And how might you start practicing, even in tiny ways? Doesn't have to be huge.
Just a small step. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. What if embracing your imperfections, all the messy human stuff, what if that isn't a weakness? What if it's actually the most powerful act of self-love?
And maybe the greatest gift you can offer the world. Being authentically you.
Perhaps something to sit with.
Well, for now, that's all from us. We've truly enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, just connecting and sharing these ideas with you.
We really hope something we talked about today resonated, maybe offered a little clarity or just a sense of understanding.
On your own journey.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really, really hope you'll come back again next time.
And if you found something meaningful here, please do remember to like, share.
And leave us a comment. It really does help us connect with more people.
It does.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye for now.